The full episode is now available on Patreon and YouTube memberships. Please see the link in the description for more details.
And we are back to talk about some of the latest that's happening in the news. And the biggest thing that's happening right now is George is kind of somewhat admitting that he may never finish Wins. Preston, what else is new? What else is new?
Is that how you, I mean, I guess. I mean, the thing is, you interview somebody, you can take a lot of things out of context. And it's an interesting thing to take out of context. But yeah, I mean, it's something we all knew. George knows it too. So we'll see. But you may want to get into exactly what we're talking about.
So George did an interview with The Hollywood Reporter. When people were sending this to me, I'm like, where did he say this? Like, what's going on here? Apparently George has, he's basically talking about in the article about how he wants to try and make all these short films, but no one in Hollywood really wants to finance them because I guess
he's promoting his short films that he's been doing based on the writings of the short stories of Howard Waldrop. Yeah.
Like his best friend. And he wants to do these. He's been trying to do them. But of course, in order to do them, he's breaking the cardinal rule, which is don't ever use your own money to finance this stuff.
He brings up some interesting things in there because he's talking about how art is affected by what is profitable and what is marketable. And so George R. R. Martin, for example, is an incredible short story writer, and that's how he started. His short stories are great. And Howard Waldrop was a short story writer, and his short stories are also great. However, there's not much money in writing short stories. And so people write novels because novels are sold in bookstores and online, and people buy novels of a certain length. And so we end up having art that is in a particular size, you know? And he was saying the same for movies. Like, we go to see movies that are somewhere between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours, you know? That's the length. You have them be longer, and, you know, people can't sit in their seat, and you have them be shorter. People are like, well, I'm not getting my money's worth. Why was this, you know, that should be a TV show. But then if it's a TV show, it has to be a serial, you know? So it's, what he's promoting is sort of something that's just unique, that is not economically viable.
True. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. So in this Hollywood Reporter interview, by the way, I love the guy who wrote this because he's very candid. He says, of course, it wouldn't be a conversation with George R. R. Martin without asking how he's balancing these projects with the long-awaited sixth and final book. Sixth and final book, The Winds of Winter in his Song of Ice and Fire series. And here's a quote from George. Unfortunately, I am 13 years late, he said. Every time I say that, I'm like, how could I be 13 years late? I don't know. It happens a day at a time. He continues, but that's still a priority. A lot of people are already writing obituaries for me. They're saying, oh, he'll never be finished. Maybe they're right. I don't know. I'm alive right now. I seem pretty vital.
It's so funny that they said 13th and final book.
Of course, this blew up because anytime George R. R. Martin takes a piss or ties his shoes, it becomes national news. And of course, we're talking about it as is per tradition for the last, 8 years that we've... Yes, by the way, you and I are coming up. You and I have passed the 7-year mark of collabing, but it's been... I for my channel, 8 years tradition covering George R. R. Martin news. So that's the thing that's pissing everybody off, is that people are thinking he's saying that he's not going to finish. I don't see it that way. I don't see that it's him saying that. I see it as him just saying the same thing he's always been saying, which is, I'm working on it.
Right. I mean, it's a statement of maximum ambiguity, but life is maximum ambiguity. It's very honest. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm going to die tomorrow. Maybe you and I are going to die tomorrow. You know, like that's all he's saying, is that, you know, one of us might, you know, I might die tomorrow. Maybe I'm going to finish it. Maybe I won't. I don't know. It's a priority, you know. I mean, I don't think it changes anything. Like, you know, do I think Winds of Winter is coming out? No. Do I think do I think this is him? Do I think this is him increasing his lack of motivation? No. I think it's the exact same level. Unless except for COVID. If we were in COVID, that was different.
You're saying we need another COVID.
If we want George to finish, we would need another COVID. Yeah.
So
another COVID.
So real quick, I always want to point this out because I don't think we ever got a chance to before, even though it's 2 years too late. Vice wrote an article on you, on Preston specifically, to the audience. And
this is long ago.
This is long ago.
A few years ago.
And the title of the article is George R. R. Martin may never finish The Winds of Winter, but this YouTuber might. And it goes off on this long little article about you. Did these guys interview you specifically or no?
Yeah. And interviewed specifically. Yeah.
Anything you could tell us from that whole situation, that whole experience?
No, they just wanted to know like what the fanfic was doing, the process, how it worked, things like that. That was it.
Have they since reached out to you?
No. It was just a one-time kind of fan who worked and wanted to write an article and give some attention to the fanfic. That was all there was to it. There was nothing. It was very small.
That was 2 years ago, and the fanfic is still continuing. Honestly, if I was George,
it is.
I would just put out one chapter a month. On a Patreon or some shit, or like on his website and offer money for it. Though I know he's contracted with the publishing company, so he can't really do that. But as someone who reads manga and has to wait week to week, or if you're reading Berserk, you have to wait month, sometimes a couple of months. Or if you're reading Hunter x Hunter, you have to wait like a couple of weeks for each chapter, and then this asshole goes on hiatus for 30 years and comes back and writes 3 more. No, so of course, anytime a conversation about George not finishing wins, one small little thing pops up, is that George has proteges, the guys who did The Expanse, or the infamous Brandon Sanderson. Why can't he finish it? Those things always pop up. And I've always wanted to have this discussion with you. So, a while back, actually 4 years ago, the guys who do The Expanse,
James Corey,
right. Unfortunately, James S.A. Corey, he was replying to some tweet and the account is now suspended. But James S.A. Corey said, you guys need to let this one die. I'm fairly certain George has given his estate strict instructions that no one is allowed to finish Ice and Fire for him. The publisher does not have the rights to do this unilaterally. And then someone replied to him and said, if that's even a real thing, what author would want that job? Just thinking about the pressure they'd face makes me want to start binge drinking. To which James S.A. Corey replied, there was a time they could have, only with George's blessings, paid Abraham Hanover and I enough to do it. That time has passed. I wonder why.
I think there's still enough money to pay them.
That Dennis Villeneuve said the same thing about doing a Dune Part 3, and then they threw buckets, like a truckload of money at him, and he's like, sure, why not? And of course, Brandon Sanderson always pops up because he helped finish Wheel of Time, so why can't he help finish Ice and Fire? So there was a Reddit thread a while ago, I think almost 10 years ago at this point, where he weighed in, and he said, as I wouldn't say yes to finishing A Song of Ice and Fire if asked, and I don't think they'd ask me, I'd respectfully decline. I wouldn't be right for the job for many reasons. I wouldn't want to put the content that series has, and part of that is due to my religious faith. Part of it is just who I am. I don't shy away from difficult material, but I prefer not to get explicit.
Oh.
I think he's a Mormon.
He is.
So I don't think he wants to write gratuitous sex and violence.
Which means George's writing has a lot, and I would not call it gratuitous. I would say it's integral. I would say George R. R. Martin has integral sex and violence. But
to a Mormon, even kissing on the lips is a bit gratuitous.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think all of the sex and violence that is in A Song of Ice and Fire is necessary. And I think as much as people like joke about Fat Pink Mast and all of that, that's a very relevant scene for understanding Samwell Tarly, and who he is as a character. And if we didn't have that scene, you'd have a different opinion of him, So Yeah, I mean, I disagree with Brandon Sanderson there. But I think Brandon Sanderson is wrong because I don't think his writing style is the same as George R. R. Martin. I think Daniel Abraham and T. Frank, James and Ty Frank, James Corey, the two authors, I think their writing style is very similar to George R. R. Martin's. And so I do think they would be very good choices when it comes to writing the prose. They would be incapable of adding the detail. They would have to have someone like Elio Garcia at their side, telling them lore and figuring things out for them. You'd need to have a lore expert in order to write it. That's the other thing, is it wouldn't just be those writers. You'd need some other people to be like, oh, well, you need to do this and this and this. So it's hard. Even I just think about the fanfic and these little questions of who is in this area? Who's in Bravos right now? Who's in Lice? Who's in King's Landing? And figuring out these old characters. I was trying to figure out who's in King's Landing the other day and who would be there. And you're like, okay, so Lord Stedman, you start naming characters who haven't been seen since Clash of Kings or A Storm of Swords, who are mentioned once. You're some knight at the Blackwater, Elric Hart, random people. There's no fucking way non-psychotic people would know where all the random characters are. That's why you'd need Elio or somebody else, some super fan.
I don't want to be an asshole to Elio, but
yeah,
20 years ago, before Wikipedia, yes, you definitely need Elio. This is the guy. Now that we have Wikipedia, your knowledge to Ice and Fire is fucking second to none, in my opinion. But even you, every now and then when someone asks you a question on stream, you look it up real quick because there are so many characters.
Oh, there's so many things I screw up. There's definitely, when doing the fanfic, this is why I have these submissions from other people and the editors, is that they catch stuff all the time and bring in ideas that I forgot about all the fucking time. All the time. And I'm just oh man, that's mm-hmm. I totally forgot about that. Oh no, that's right. Oh, right. Yeah. It's just little things, and you have to puzzle them out and talk about it, and you just couldn't do it. We were talking about King's Landing again. Where is Cersei living right now? Is she living in her room, or is she living in Robert's room? And even that discussion, we're having a discussion about it. Wait, where is she? Because in A Clash of Kings, Tyrion gets on her bed and is is this Robert's bed? And it's well, wait, did she move to Robert's room, or did they take Robert's bed and move it to her room? Or did they sleep in the same bed? I don't.
Well, I would imagine Cersei would move into Robert's room, considering what we see in Feast for Crows.
Because she'd want the bigger room. And want to feel like she's king.
Right, but also because, she's repeating what Robert did, and how better to do that, but then to do it in his room, where he did it to her, as she does it to that woman, Merryweather?
Taena Merryweather.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah, I noticed a lot of people online didn't really read the article, they just read the headline, but I gotta say, I don't blame George one bit for being sidetracked with this, because this guy Howard was his best friend, and he wants to enshrine his friend's legacy after his passing.
Yeah.
I can't blame the man for doing that and putting this other stuff on hold. It sucks that while trying to enshrine Howard's legacy, he's kind of forgoing his own a little bit, which that sucks. But at the same time, this was his friend, and he cares a lot about his friends. It is what it is. I said on Twitter that I think he should exit stage right and just have someone else come in and do it. And like we said, his proteges have said they aren't willing to do it anymore. Brandon Sanderson has, taken a bow on that, and he just won't even touch it, which, okay, fine. But if I was brainstorming something that I would want him to do is, I would want him, of course, to finish Winds, and then start looking for a successor to finish Dream, or any other books he has planned after Dream. Because at this point, my man, you want to live out your life and do whatever it is you want, go do that, but don't tarnish your legacy by not finishing this. At least let someone else that you trust and you have complete faith in come in and with your guidance and your notes, take care of it for you so you can just go off and live your life the way you want.